Flip it. Destroy. Oh, I destroyed that half. Flamethrower token. A couple blast markers. A lot more information on this blast marker than what I'm used to seeing on a blast marker. So I'll have to play with that. And I guess what they did was, because it used to be like they had a blast marker for each color or representation of what caused the explosion. Now it looks like we have just a couple, but they've put all the combat information that's relevant to the type of weapon that caused the explosion. So it's all on one counter. That's fine. That's fewer counters for me to track. More buildings, a couple more objective type markers, suppressed markers. The vehicle chits, so you can roll and then see which item is destroyed or damaged on your vehicle. So they have component damage on vehicles. That's pretty cool. And again, the ruined sides of buildings, because you know Stalingrad pretty much got leveled. Here we got an open kind of area. This is where you would lay your specific building tiles on. And these are double-sided. Ooh, the square. That's right. This is from, I remember this is from the movie. So this is this is the famous fountain. I see this in like every Stalingrad movie ever, and they show the tanks running up over it or people running across it, or in the movie Enemy at the Gates, they're hiding in there. So that's very cool to see. Here's one with the building built into the map, and then on the back side, just destroyed city, destroyed Stalingrad. More map tiles of terrain. Okay, another one. I didn't count how many. I'm just excited to grab all of these. So, more. And I prefer ones that don't have the buildings in them a lot of times, because again, this will let you customize your maps because you got all those building overlays. But, if you want to make that cityscape, you've got both types of maps to do it. So I love that they give you so many maps that are double-sided. And there we go, some more terrain. Bunches of it. More destroyed buildings. This looks like, oh, no, never mind. So you got your wall. For a moment, I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to show levels of the building. No, I was looking at this wrong. It's just all first floor building. Then you got a couple building here. So yeah, map tiles look great. Everything looks great. Here we've got your cards for the Russians. Now the cards, this is not a card driven game. If you've never seen this before, or the Heroes system, it's just card assisted. So there's rules for drawing cards, using cards. And they can give bonuses and things. Nothing that really overly breaks the game. But like a lot of games with card assists, it might be like, oh, I can activate a unit and it can move before my opponent moves, or something like that. Play before activating a unit. This activation, your unit gains to fire on the move special ability. Several of those. Here's one, don't stop. Play before moving one of your vehicles. You can move through any difficult passage square. Communication scrambled. Play at the end of the orders phase. Remove an order token from an enemy unit without revealing it. So, again, nothing that will break the game or make it so your opponent will absolutely lose most of the time. Sometimes, like with any game that has a little extra component on the outside, you might get a lucky card and you play it at a lucky moment and it can change the course of the game. But generally, these are just little extra things that make your opponent go, or make you go, yeah, suck it. Let's see, dynamic. You can move one of your order tokens onto a unit that doesn't have one and has not yet acted this turn. So that's pretty cool. So, yep, there's your... And yeah, and usually from the first game, I remember a lot of these were like pictures of propaganda posters and stuff like that. So there's some propaganda posters. So the cards look very nice. Very good indeed. Now, I have to find a plastic bag to stick them in now that I've taken the shrink wrap off. Here we have the Germans. We'll take a quick look at the German cards. See if I can peel that quickly. There we go. And just some of their cards. Burst into action. Yeah, and you'll notice a lot of times the cards kind of duplicate between the two forces, but there's sometimes one or two very specific to that nation. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I was like, oh, I think there's a burst into action. So they both have a burst into action, just, you know, artwork specific to them. So you're going to see that, you know, it's not like the Russians only get this type of card and the Germans get this. It's kind of the same cards for balance. It's just when you know, that way when you deal them out. But there's usually a couple that are specific to the nation. But then again, got some propaganda poster artwork. There we go. I was thinking 999. I'm sure the Russians have like a niet. So here's a 999. Played anytime, cancel an action. Let me see if they have a niet. Yeah, and then the Russians have their own cancel card. It's a niet card. So again, you're not going to see one side get something that the other side doesn't have, generally speaking. It might be customized to your faction or your nation, but again, there's pretty equal between the two decks. And some more poster artwork. Fury of the Fuhrer. So they probably don't have Fury of the Fuhrer, but they might have Fury of Stalin. Let me just see if they have something like that. All-terrain. Tactician. Surprise, surprise. It was one of these last ones. Terrible Ivan, maybe. Order 227. Double down on the vodka rations. So unique to Russia, because I'm sure they didn't have a lot of vodka in the German army. All right. I love the dice. So this is a nice thing about the game. It only needs two 6-sided dice. So they include some of that. Most of your attack rolls are going to be with 1. Now, I have it hidden somewhere. I let my daughter, she's 5, I probably should keep a better eye on where I put stuff. I like the dice from the other games better. They were kind of a muted dice. This is kind of a glossy, translucent. I don't know. I think I like the subdued dice from the other games better. But that aside, they're custom. Well, they kind of got a star, and then they have a nice German cross for the Germans. And what is this? A star. Star for the Russians. So that's your 6 right there. I bet they're good. They're good dice now that I've taken them out of the pack. I mean, they're fine. They're just fine. I got no problems. They roll great and they look nice. So we'll put those away. So really, I'm not even sure what the complaint would be. But the blocks are good. And these are super important to the game. Oh, and they're really good too. These are nice. Okay, so what are these? They should hold up to some wear and tear. Basically, when you are setting out your troops for the turn, you have a certain amount of orders based on how many leaders you've taken. So they give you a star. So if you have, say, 4 stars, leader points, if you will, what you're going to do is take 4 of these blocks, and they're numbered essentially 1 through 10. And as you can see, there's a couple blanks. So generally what you're going to do is take your so again, if you have, I've got 3 here. So let's say you had 3 leadership points. What you're usually going to get is blocks 1, 2, and 3, and a bluff. And then what you do is you go back and forth between you and your opponent, and you place these blocks down on your different units throughout the board, which means not everybody gets to activate for an action in that turn. And so you lay them out, and then when you go back and forth on initiative, if that's my number 1 guy, then I know that's the first guy I'm going to activate. So you actually kind of pre-plot your activations at the start of a turn. And the reason you got that bluff is so you can try and throw off your enemy. So what I've always encouraged my son to do is think about who you want to go in the order that you want, and then randomly place them down. So like if I have, 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, if I wanted this guy to go first, I might actually place my number 3 guy first. The idea is to try and bluff your opponent into guessing which unit he's going to activate first. And that's why you have a bluff token, is so that you can put that down. And again, I might put that down first, My opponent might think that's the first unit I want to activate, but he doesn't know that was my bluff unit. And so he might put down his first activation thinking to counteract my first activation, when in actuality that was just a bluff. That's like the funnest aspect of the game, is trying to fool your opponent into what order you're activating units. So fun, until they kill something and then you lose that activation because it was an upcoming activation and they killed that unit that hadn't acted yet. It has its ups and downs. But anyway, these are very good blocks. Very good quality blocks. And then the Russians have it too. And I'm just going to grab a couple. And they're great. They look great. They're really nice. Not going to pull them all out, but you've seen some blocks, you've seen them all. And the nice thing is there's no stickers that you have to put on. So they've done all that for you. So just pull your blocks out and play. Play, play, play. And that should be it. That should be everything. I'm going to have to make a custom insert for this. And there's nothing else here. The box does seem a little bit smaller than the Heroes of Normandy. I think it's just arranged a little differently. I'm not sure. It just feels a little smaller. I'm going to put the cards back in and then very carefully not shake up the box so I don't mix the cards up completely. But what do you get? You get your one deck of cards here, Russians. You get, well, the Russians. You get some German cards. You get stickers that you can put on a storage solution. If you got it from the Kickstarter or you buy it from them, you can label your boxes. That's cool. You get a pack of 4 dice, 2 for the Germans, 2 for the Russians. You get Russian activation blocks, German activation blocks. You then get your tiles for the train. There's one, and they're double-sided, and they're pretty good, hefty cardboard too. They're not flimsy. They're very thick. Probably they feel like they would be completely compatible with your other Heroes of Normandy stuff. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terrain tiles, double-sided. You get, I'm going to call these the admin. So there's one admin with your buildings and tokens. Oh, and I just busted that one out. So you get 2 admin counter sheets with your buildings. Here's your turn tracker. And you get 2 German unit counter sheets. 1, 2. And you get 2 Russian unit counter sheets. So, oh, there's a Siberian Rifle Battalion. I missed that one earlier. Here's your field commander. There was like a Volga one recruitment tile, I thought. Well, I totally misread one of these. Anyway. Oh, here it is right here. The Volga Rifle Battalion. So there's two battalions, looks like. Yeah, because these represent your squads. Yeah, that's a very small battalion if it's just a couple of squads, but I don't think these were platoons. But now I don't remember if these were, I think these were squads and your heroes and individual vehicles. So they must be part of the battalion, not quite the entire battalion. All right, anyway, there you go. You got your Russians there. Then you had one rules explanation page for your offset grid squares. So this is, I think, some unique rules to Stalingrad. You have your nicely laid out, illustrated scenario book. Had 8 scenarios, and the rules for free play scenarios came in to be 23 pages. Even has rules for 3 or 4 players. And then you had your rule book. Really nice rule. Again, really, really good layout. It's a gorgeous looking rule book. So now it's just a matter of sitting down, reading it, and see if I need to relearn anything. This is a game system that once you have it down, it goes pretty good. The only thing that's real challenging is understanding and remembering what all the different symbols on your counters are. Like I said, one of these days we'll take a deeper look at that. And so just being able to find what all those counters or the symbols mean is kind of the trickiest part of the rule book. But shouldn't have too much trouble with that, since new system, shouldn't have too many. Alright, then you have the cover. We didn't look at the back. I should have flipped it over before I opened up the cards because now they're going to flip around. Let's take a look at the back real quick. Oh, look there, had a piece of paper holding it in place. There's all the contents right there. 50 Russian action cards, 50 German action cards, and kind of what it looks like laid out. So very nice. I like to keep these. I think I still have my Heroes of Normandy one. I might not, who knows. This is what the back looks. Oh, that is so cool. Mostly when I get games, the back is this. It's all the promotional information you might want to know about the game. But when you take this off, that's what you get on the back of the game. A stylized version of the cover art. That is very classy. So for me, this is definitely one gorgeous looking game, and I'm glad I got to share that with you. We're going to look at some other stuff. I only got one other thing. I must have got a very small pledge level. So we'll look at one other item. Probably post that tomorrow. And then from there, we'll start doing some solo plays and things like that because I do love the Heroes system. Alright, thanks a lot for watching. Talk to y'all later. Bye. Hello everyone. Welcome to the table. Today we're going to do an unboxing. I got a couple items in. This was a Kickstarter, came out a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but we now have Heroes of Stalingrad, same company that does the Heroes of Normandy, Devil Pig Games, using their hero system. And I really enjoy the hero system, and I was very, very happy to get in on the Kickstarter when I did, because the company, I don't have all the details and I don't want to say anything wrong, but I do know they ran into some financial trouble, and on Facebook they talked about how they had to lay people off. They finally found money so they could print everything that they had in the queue, you know, so they can meet those Kickstarter projects they had. I got my card game, and now finally we have Heroes of Stalingrad. So through a lot of adversity for them, I was able to, you know, finally get this today. Very excited about that. I knew it was coming because they had posted that they had found financial backing to make it happen, but it's just been, you know, when. I'm going to see how much I can show. My table, I didn't get it entirely cleaned off. I still have a whole bunch of paint laying around and dice, because I've been trying to figure out post-captain and some ships and sailing gauges and things. So I should have done a better job prepping the area. So we're going to see how much of this I can really show you without showing you all the other clutter I've got. Well, so here's the cover. First of all, I've always enjoyed the artwork from Devil Pig Games. It's very stylized. I know that some people don't. You know, it's very cartoonish, comic bookish. I love it. I think it's great. This looks like the commissar from Enemy at the Gates. That's like the female sniper from that movie. Gosh, I know this actor, but I can't think of his name. But, you know, the guy, he did... I can't even think of the movie off the top of my head, but, you know, Cross of Iron, I think was the movie he did. But anyway, I think that's supposed to be Vasily, but Vasily Zaitsev, that doesn't quite look like him from Enemy at the Gates. And I'm not quite sure who that is. A lot of times their heroes kind of look like, you know, Clint Eastwood and folks who did Hollywood movies. Because if you're not familiar with the system, it's kind of like taking an homage to Hollywood World War II type action movies, or World War II action movies from anyone, if you want to say that. So it's very, very stylized, and some people you recognize. Anyway, so here's the rules. Now, we'll look at it. I don't know, like, because I just opened it, right? So I'm not sure where the rules stand as far as clarity. That was some complaints from the very first game, and then I've got the book of rules, which is supposed to have like all the rules, but now this is Stalingrad, so it's hard to say if this has special rules for, you know, fighting in the city or whatever. So it's really hard to say exactly what the rules are like. Mostly the complaint came from just clarity, because they were like translated from French and they went through a couple revisions. So hopefully what we have is a nice, refined, well-written rule book, which I can't tell that because I'm just opening it, but I will say this. It looks really good. It's laid out really, really well. So I'm looking forward to reading this and see, any changes or how it compares. I mean, it really shouldn't be too much different than the other games. If you've played one, you probably know how to play this just fine. But anyway, looking through the rule book, it's laid out really, really nice. You got your characteristics, because that's a big thing about this hero system is pretty much all the information you need is on the counters. And then what the book has is just, explanations of those counters or the little special symbols and things like that. I don't know why he's hugging a goat. But anyway, characters, recruitment tiles. Yeah, this is an aspect of the game that my son likes. These counters that you have, we'll look at them, they're actually designed so you can fit on them 15mm miniatures. And this kind of makes it a hybrid miniature slash board game kind of a thing. So it is kind of cool that they include with it a point system. So you can play scenarios that they have, and we'll look at the scenario book right now, but they also have a system where you can create scratch battles. So you can say, okay, we're going to play a 150-point game, and then you spend that 150 points to buy recruitment tiles and platoons and things like that. A very, very cool system. Oh, good. Terrain effects, a reference, a couple things I might photocopy to keep handy, just in case there's any differences from all the other rules that I've got. So we'll set that aside. So that's a nice rule book. Then we have the scenarios book. So again, you can either create your own scenarios, do your own battles that you bring stuff together, or they usually have a lot of scenarios. And I tell you, as with Heroes of Normandy, as you were buying the expansions like Carenton and St. Mariglis and stuff like that, they usually included really specific rules. Things that made the scenarios different from each other. Special like lamp rules for lighting conditions for night games and things like that. So it'll be very fun to look through here and see what they have. Maybe again, things unique to Stalingrad. See, here's a free battle mode, so you can create your battles. Different layouts, it looks like. And then here we go, some scenarios. Hello, boys. How to set up your maps, how to prep your game tracker, turn tracker, I should say. Turn 2. This looks like maybe it's an example game, because it's kind of showing some things here. Yeah, it looks like this, at least this first one is probably the tutorial game, and then as you move forward there's less hand holding, and then it's just, here we go, scenarios, shortage. I've seen some of these pictures before. This guy specifically, this is a picture, reminds me of old school tactical, the Stalingrad. It's just interesting when you look over so many different rule sets and war games, you start to notice pictures and artwork from different games. I'm not saying anybody copied or anything, because a lot of times they draw assets from real world photographs, and so it's just cool to go, oh yeah, that looks like something off of this, or oh, I think I've seen that before. Now, there's custom art, no. The only custom art I saw, might have been back in the rule book, was like some of this here. I think some of that I've already got in one of the other rule books. Don't know why I wanted to share that, but anyway, there's your scenarios. I didn't even tell you about the scenario. So here we've got scenario 8. So it looks like you get 8 scenarios, but the thing that really helps is the fact that you get the free play rules. So in essence, you kind of have unlimited. Let's see what we got here. Hero System, Tactical, Scale, World War II. Yeah, there's your Heroes of Normandy box. Like I have Carenton, St. Mariglis, and then the rule set. I have Shadows over Normandy. I don't have any of the background sets. Every time I open this, I'm like, I just fall in love again with the system and the artwork. And I should, this Christmas, spend my money, if I can, to find copies of D-Day and Pegasus Bridge, because I don't know when I'll get them again. And then they had a few units. They had some SS, Civilians Under Fire, 4th Armored, 11th Armored, 7th Armored, I think. They also have army boxes for like the British, Americans, and Germans. So there's actually quite a bit of content if you can still get your hands on it. I would wholly recommend it. If you're looking for something that's a good gateway game to, your kids, friends, or if you're just looking for something fun, that doesn't take itself too seriously, but yet is actually a pretty serious game, this is not a bad way to go. What do we got here? Offset grid squares. Well, there might be some unique rules right there. I'm not even sure what that's for. Only infantry units can enter offset grid squares. Alright, well that's something new to learn. But at least there's a nice handy card to explain it for you. And multi-part buildings, grenades, and offset grid. Alright, so there are some special rules to learn here. Great, we'll set that aside. What do we got here? Yeah, with the Kickstarter, I had the opportunity to get like the storage system and things, and I didn't. I should have. And here's a nice sticker set to put on your boxes. I think at the time I didn't realize the company was going to have financial problems. I thought, oh, I'll just get the Kickstarter and then I'll buy some of this stuff as it comes out. And I'm not sure I'll have all the opportunities to get all of that stuff. But here's some stickers for your storage boxes, if you get the storage box. Or if you make your own storage boxes. That's kind of a cool idea too. What I did was, when I was making my own custom storage inserts for this, if you search my YouTube, you'll see custom storage boxes I made. With the recruitment tiles, I kept all of these unit punch outs. I have them, and that way I've said to myself, if I ever make or need them to label boxes or things, I could just use the actual cardboard that the game provides, and it's got the logo. So if you don't have stickers, keep all of these unit symbols so you can use those to mark boxes or things. Anyway, this is what a lot of people like to see, is the counters. These are always, in my mind, super gorgeous. Again, they're 15 millimeter. I've got some based folks. So clearly, based on this is a Flames of War base. That's too big. But if you can see, the figures, the little people, are kind of in the size of this. And in a way, this is a base of mounted figures. If I wanted, I could just, well, if I didn't have these already glued in, I could take some sticky and just stick figures right here and give it a 3D effect. Here is a T-34. I don't have any of my 15 millimeter T-34 sitting next to me. Let's see if there's a Sherman, a Lend-Lease Sherman, and I'll show you how well these work. Let me see what Germans they got. Here's a Panzer III, Panzer II. All I've got next to me are Panthers, a Panzer IV. Well, let me grab a Sherman. But as you can see, with a Sherman here, if you really, really wanted to, you could take your 15 millimeter miniatures, get a little like blue sticky tack, and just tack it right there. And then when you play your game, boom, you have the ultimate visual experience. Just push that around. All the stats you need are sitting right around the very outer edges of this counter. So you can stick your tank on there and still see all the combat data you need. It's really brilliant. I love what they did, and they're very consistent with that. So anyway, here's at least two for the Russians here. T-34, there's at least two T-34s, a T-60, they got a little Jeep. I'm trying to read upside down, M1937, some kind of anti-tank, I'm sure. And then a couple of hero units. And then you got little counters that represent ammo or things that you bought, and usually that gives you like a +1 to hit. There's some re-rolls for veterans. So these are all options that you can buy that modify your troops, and as you play them, you just spin the tokens. But there's a recruitment board, at least, for the Volga Rifle Battalion. You know, we'll go in one day to how to create units and how to buy stuff for the custom free battles. But anyway, here's some. And then, of course, on the back, you have like the destroyed T-34. Just leave it on the board. It's now terrain. And then the units will sometimes have their broken sides or their their wounded sides. This lets you know that unit's been defeated. It's worth victory points for the opponent. So they are front and back sided. Here's number 2. Again, front and back side. Try to get some of the glare off of there so you can see it. I haven't zoomed in too much for that, just so I could get a nice full view here. Here's the first of the Germans. Steiner, that's his name from the movie. I forget the name of the actor, but yeah, like Sergeant Steiner, I think, was the name from the movies. Cross of Iron, I think, is where he came from. There's a Simon Gruber. Then, of course, you know, you got the Germans. Gotta have Germans. Now, since this is earlier in the war versus Heroes of Normandy, I mean, you could do mashups with the system. So you could take your old Germans versus, you know, Americans or whatever. So I was very curious to see how the stats compare. I don't think they can do too much tweaking with the stats as far as the bonuses that they give the squads. So they would probably hold up pretty well against other stuff. The vehicles might be a little weaker for sure, because, you know, if you take Panzer IIIs up against Tigers, you're probably going to get lost there. You're going to lose it. Instead of like Pack 40s, Pack 44s, things like that, it's a Pack 38. So it is kind of interesting to take the game system back a couple of years. Ooh, people honking outside. Alright, and again we got some artillery markers, grenade markers. Here's a SDK FZ. There's a 2511. There's two of those. So you got your troop transports. Another, trying to read from the side upside down, Panzer III. So no Panzer IVs, which, to be honest, I'm not sure they had Panzer IVs at Stalingrad. So Panzer III seemed pretty fine. A recruitment tile for a leader there, and then a Panzer Grenadier unit. Everything looks really good. They've done a very good job. I've always been happy. There's very little offset. I don't see any of the artwork is cut off. They're not 1000% centered, but all the important information and artwork and everything is on there. Nothing is cut off, and I love that. Alright, so that's 2 counter sheets of units. And then we have first one of building. This is, looks like it's split here, but that's a pretty big building section. I guess that way you could destroy part of a building. That's kind of cool. And this one here is 2 tile pieces. So again, it looks like maybe you could destroy half of a building. Just flip